Let's go to Washington, D.C., where there is snow on the ground, because Kellyanne Conway is with us. Good morning to you, Kellyanne.
Good morning.
Good morning. You look beautiful. I love the scarf. You look great.
Thank you.
Okay,
I love that Mother Nature provided the background.
I know. Isn't it beautiful? Don't you love the hush of the snow? I love it.
It's a gorgeous day here in Washington. I'm sad about my Philadelphia Eagles, but they always deliver for their fans. Great end to a great season.
You and Jillian.
Good way to put it.
We wanted to get your opinion about this. Last week, I think it was Friday, this was an article in the New York Times. The headline was FBI opened inquiry into whether Trump was secretly working on behalf of Russia. What is your reaction to this? The president has said, this is, I know Sarah Huckabee Sanders said it was absurd that they were saying that the president was working with Russia. What's the president saying this morning?
Well, the president said this weekend that it's the most insulting thing he's ever been asked, that's ever been said about him, which is saying a great deal, given everything that's been said and done about him. The other thing is, I have a slightly different view on it, which is it sort of confirms what the president has said all along about some of the rogue actors at the very tippy top of the FBI who are no longer there because they were fired and worse. Some of them were deemed to be leaking and lying, sexting each other, obviously, with their tremendous biases against this president. So I think it confirms what he has said all along about some of those rogue actors, not the 35,000 or so rank-and-file men and women in the FBI who go to work and do a fabulous job every day. Also, I think the headline could have said what so many of these stories could have said and never do, which is that investigation opened up, no fruits came of it, nothing came of it.
Washington
And I think that that's really the important part of this, is that 2.5 years into this and millions of dollars, we're yet to see proof of any collusion. I mean, I ran the campaign and the successful part of it at the end, and I never talked to anybody in Moscow. I talked to people in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, and Macomb County, Michigan.
Well, the other headline over the weekend was the Washington Post. This came out yesterday. Trump has concealed details of his face-to-face encounters with Putin from senior officials in the administration. And I was reading Kellyanne in the Wall Street Journal this morning. Apparently at the Putin meeting in Germany in 2017, the president wanted to reduce the chance of leaks, and so he didn't have any note takers, aside from, I believe, Rex Tillerson, who might have taken some notes and passed word along.
Well, apart from what has been printed, I will tell you that was a time when there were tremendous leaks, including from when the president would have meetings in the Oval Office. And I can recall early on 2 calls with foreign leaders, I believe Mexico and Australia, that leaked, the contents of which leaked almost immediately. So there was great suspicion that some people were obviously leaking this. But I also am just amazed that in this reporting, people fail to mention other facts, which is that unlike President Obama and other administrations, this president has been very tough on Russia. He's expelled 60 Russians from this country, closed 2 consulates. Treasury has put fresh new sanctions on Russia. The president, of course, is selling, America is exporting energy to our Eastern European allies. That certainly hurts Russia. And not once but twice, when Assad gassed his own people in Syria, including those children gasping for the last breaths, the president took retaliatory action. So he's been, unlike the person he beat with the silly dollar store red button, plastic button, he's not trying to do a phony reset on a stage at a podium. He's been trying to forge good, positive working relationships with leaders all around the world where we think we can work on big issues together. But at the same time, pushing back with these sanctions and expulsions when necessary.
And Kellyanne, it's no secret that he met with Kim Jong-un in private, one-on-one. He met with President Xi, one-on-one. He met with President Modi of India, one-on-one. That's the way he does it. He always said he liked doing that in a one-on-one setting. Now, Adam Schiff says yesterday that he's going to look to subpoena the note-taker, the interpreter, to find out what took place when the president was one-on-one with Vladimir Putin. Would the president push back on that?
I haven't discussed that directly with the president, but I assume that the Democrats, when they're done shutting down the government, not coming to the table to fund border security and keep us all safe, that they will continue to subpoena any number of people. I think they have to be a little bit careful generally, because if you read a lot of the polls and you listen to people across this country, they're a heck of a lot less interested in investigations, indictment, impeachment talk than they are making sure that their paychecks are protected and making sure that this economic boom and this deregulation boom and this trade boom under this president continue. One other thing I would note, just this morning on a different network, Senator Chris Coons of Delaware said that he doesn't see anything that the president's hiding. He's not willing to say that yet. He's not willing to say yet that the president's hiding something. He also separately, in a different interview a few days ago, said remarkably that he thinks a barrier would work and that a, quote, barrier or wall is not immoral. He's pushing back, as are many other Democrats privately and publicly, on Speaker Pelosi's claim that walls are immoral. You've got a lot of Democrats out there now making joyful noises about either reinforcing and renovating barriers that already exist at the southern border or adding to them.
Maybe the seeds of a deal. Maybe the seeds of a deal are there.
Yes, that'd be great. We're here. Here we are. We showed up to work today. We're ready to negotiate with anyone who'll come in. And by the way, if the Democrats would like some kind of briefing akin to the one the president had with the press, with the cameras in the room on Friday, it was just remarkable to hear from the people on the ground. The supervisor of San Diego came in here and she said walls work in San Diego, 92% reduction in illegal crossings over the decades since they put one up. Yuma, Arizona, Tucson, Arizona, El Paso, Texas, these walls work. We heard directly from people of faith, pastors that lead congregations. We heard from Customs and Border Patrol, DHS, and something else that Delaware Senator Democrat Chris Coons said, and he said an operative phrase, he said, quote, if that's what DHS says we need. That's what's important here. This is not an idea from President Trump or Vice President Pence. This is what the brave men and women at DHS and Customs and Border Patrol tell us they need to do their job. So if Pelosi and Schumer and the others want to come here for a briefing with those men and women, I'm sure we can arrange that. They can hear directly from the people on the ground. They can tell them what they need. What is so hard about understanding 300 Americans die from heroin overdoses every single week in this country? That means 1,000 people have died of heroin overdoses since the shutdown started.
Right. Having said all that, and with the Democrats partying in Puerto Rico rather than staying here, still, according to an ABC poll, 53% of the country blame the president and the Republicans for the shutdown. What's your reaction? What's the president's reaction?
Well, we're not going to talk about media polls. I'm already digging into them for 2020. But on this one, it's not about who's to blame so much as how can we get border security and reopen the government? And the reason I say that is because people are also, in some ways, I'm surprised it's only 53%, since about 95% of the media coverage tells people the answer to that question. It becomes almost like a quiz question. So that's one thing. The other thing is that after the House did its job and passed $5.7 billion in border security funding before Christmas, the Senate just had to do its job. Mr. Schumer needs to find those 8 or 9, 10 Democratic votes to get us to 60 votes, and then Leader McConnell, the majority leader, will put it on the president's desk. So the Democrats are failing to fund DHS the way that DHS wants to be funded. And this is not just about the barrier. Let's be honest here. We have an 800,000 case backlog in our immigration cases in this country. So this would increase the number of immigration judges, increase the personnel at the border, have more technology and detection, meet those humanitarian needs. There's a lot in this package that needs to be funded.
But what is going to happen now? What's going to break this deadlock? Are you just waiting for the Democrats to approach you? Will you guys reach out to a guy like Chris Coons or Joe Manchin, to maybe some of the moderate voices to push back in their leadership?
And Kellyanne, before you answer that, Senator Lindsey Graham, he said that the president has indicated an emergency declaration would be a last resort. He also is urging the president to open the government for a short period of time, just for 3 weeks or so that they can all figure it out. Any of those a possibility?
I've been in some of those meetings where that's been discussed. I'll tell you this. The president said to Speaker Pelosi last week, we were here, and they came back, and he said, okay, well, if I reopen it for 30 days, could we work on the wall? And she said no. And then he said goodbye. And they totally mischaracterized the way he handled that in tone and content. I was sitting right there. But the bottom line is this. They said no. He put it on the table. He asked her, okay, so if we reopen the government, can we? She said no, not to do it in 30 days. So if they're changing their mind, if they're listening to the Customs and Border Patrol agent, if they really care about those kids and those family units trying to come over the border.
So will the president reach out to moderate voices?
Well, the president has, and he will continue to do so. I also would tell you that I'm a fan of maybe talking to some of the 31 Democratic House members who represent districts that Trump-Pence won in 2016. Some of them are making joyful noises about border security because because they're going home and saying, what are you doing there? I elected you. I elected Donald Trump, and then I elected you 2 years later because I believe in the same thing, which is that you're going to help us protect borders. You have more and more Democrats, including those from California, Maryland, New York, I saw a few, making very positive noises about very positive overtures, I should say, about barriers, fencing. And if they don't think that the fencing that's already there, the miles and miles of walls and fencing, border security work, then are they willing to say, let's get rid of it? Many of them have voted to renovate it because they know it works. Look, in no one's rational mind would securing our borders not include a physical barrier. It includes many other things, but how in the world could it not include the impediment that you can't crawl under, climb over, drive through, or walk around? We need it all.
We've had so many barriers in the past. Real briefly, before you go, what about that story that yesterday John Bolton asked the Pentagon to look into striking Iran in the last year?
I have no comment on that because I've not been able to speak to anyone at the Pentagon or Ambassador Bolton about that particular story. I could tell you that the president is very pleased with a number of the overtures that Ambassador Bolton has been making. He just came back from yet another foreign trip. It's obviously a busy place, foreign policy, national security-wise, and Secretary Pompeo also has been abroad this past week and gave an interview while he was in Saudi Arabia, I believe. So again, I don't have confirmation on that particular story, and I'm always loath when I read it in the paper first and don't have the opportunity to talk to the principal because they get so many things wrong.
I just don't see anything wrong with looking at Iranian targets, especially when they were sending rockets that almost hit our embassy. It makes total sense.
I want to say one more thing. We all know how the president feels about Iran. It's this president who ran on and then successfully killed the Iran nuclear deal. The just gazillions of dollars, pallets of cash going to Iran. And of course, Israel is our best friend in that region. And this president has been the greatest friend to Israel, as Benjamin Netanyahu himself has said. He moved the embassy, and many people said that many presidents promised. He's the one who delivered. And he's been very protective of Israel. Thank you. Have a great day.